Let me take you back to the mid-1970s, a time of big dreams, bold designs, and plenty of disappointment in the car world. Among the forgotten names of that era, one stands out: the Bricklin SV-1, a car born out of ambition, wrapped in fiberglass, and fitted with gullwing doors that made it look like something straight out of science fiction. But behind the flashy looks was a story filled with overpromises, underdelivery, and political drama that nearly bankrupted an entire Canadian province. This wasn't just a car, it was a gamble, and it's one that left behind one of the strangest legacies in automotive history. The Bricklin story begins with Malcolm Bricklin, a young entrepreneur with a knack for chasing big ideas. He wasn't a car designer, he wasn't an engineer, but he was a salesman with a dream. His goal was simple, at least on paper: build a sports car that was safer than anything on the road. He believed drivers deserved a car that looked exciting but also kept them alive in a crash. And that belief led him to design what he called the SV-1, short for Safety Vehicle 1. But here's the thing: sometimes passion and vision aren't enough to make a dream work. On the surface, the Bricklin SV-1 looked like the future. It had those dramatic gullwing doors, the kind you'd expect from a supercar, not a startup. It came in bright, bold colors: orange, green, yellow, that you couldn't miss. The body was made of acrylic-coated fiberglass, which was advertised as rust-proof. Malcolm told people this car would last a lifetime. He said it was the sports car of tomorrow, but with one important twist: it was designed to keep you safe. The SV-1 came with built-in roll cages, shock-absorbing bumpers, and even removed the cigarette lighter because Bricklin believed smoking while driving was unsafe. It was a bold idea, but bold ideas don't always work when the execution falls apart. Here's where the dream began to crack. The gullwing doors, they looked amazing in the brochure, but in reality, they barely worked. Owners complained that the hydraulic system jammed, leaving them stuck inside their cars. Imagine pulling up to a gas station, only to realize you can't get out. And that rust-proof body? It didn't actually prevent other parts of the car from falling apart. Fit and finish were poor, with panels that didn't line up and paint that faded quickly. Worst of all, the SV-1 wasn't much of a performer. Depending on the year, it came with either an AMC V8 or a Ford the 5.8, but both were weighed down by the car's heavy body and safety reinforcements. It looked like a Corvette competitor, but it drove more like a sluggish family sedan. Building a car company is expensive. Malcolm Bricklin knew that, and so he went looking for help. He found it in a surprising place: the Canadian province of New Brunswick. The government agreed to fund production, hoping it would create jobs and put the province on the map. For a moment, it looked like things might work out. A factory opened, workers were hired, and the first cars started rolling off the line in 1974. But the truth was, every SV-1 that left the factory cost more to build than it sold for. The company was losing money on every single car, and the more they built, the deeper the hole became. By 1975, New Brunswick had sunk millions into the Bricklin project. Politicians began to realize that the car wasn't saving the province, it was draining it. There were questions, arguments, and finger-pointing about where the money went. Malcolm Bricklin, ever the dreamer, kept promising that success was just around the corner. But those promises rang hollow as the problems piled up. In the end, the Canadian government pulled the plug, shutting down the factory and leaving workers out of jobs. By the time the dust settled, only about 3,000 Bricklin SV-1s had been built. Production stopped as quickly as it began, leaving behind a trail of angry investors, disappointed buyers, and one very embarrassed Canadian province. For Malcolm Bricklin, it wasn't the end of his story. He went on to other ventures, including bringing Subaru to the US, and later trying to import small Chinese cars. But the SV-1 remained his most infamous creation. Today, the Bricklin SV-1 lives on in a strange way. Collectors see it as a curiosity, a piece of history from a time when anything seemed possible. It's not a great car to drive, and it's far from reliable, but its rarity and bold design make it stand out at car shows. In fact, some enthusiasts treasure it precisely because it failed. It represents ambition, even if that ambition fell short. Looking back, the Bricklin SV-1 is less about what it was and more about what it tried to be. It was a bold experiment, a car that dared to challenge convention. And while it failed spectacularly, it captured the imagination of an entire generation. The SV-1 reminds us that the car industry isn't just about machines, it's about people, vision, and sometimes the consequences of dreaming too big. So, what do we make of the Bricklin SV-1 today? It wasn't the Corvette killer Malcolm Bricklin promised. It wasn't the future of safe driving. And it certainly wasn't a financial success. But it was memorable. And in the world of cars, sometimes being remembered is its own kind of victory. The Bricklin SV-1 proves that even failed ideas can leave lasting marks on history. And maybe that's the real lesson. It's better to try something bold and stumble than to never try at all.